My name is Santosh Lalonde. I started playing music, I guess, when I was 15 as a bass player. Really liked Primus and stuff like that. Didn't really play in any bands necessarily until I was like 26. And I made my first real band when I came to Montreal, and I met the Unsettlers, and this was like a 10-piece folk orchestra sort of band. And we did, I don't know, we were doing a lot of fun shows and stuff. We played for a circus carnival, we played Oshiaga, and we played a lot of shows. We were doing pretty good, but the dynamics of a 10-piece band got a little bit difficult to maintain. A lot of people got a bit older, wanted to have babies and do different stuff, so that band sort of fell apart. But at the meantime, I also started a band called Bad Uncle, which was sort of like a grungy, gypsy-ish sort of medley of sounds. And that band still exists today. And in the interim, along that, I also had solo projects, and started a band briefly called the Cold Lake Buzzards, which was a little bit spaghetti westernish. And right now I have another project called Monogamy, which is sort of like a science fiction polka disco sort of, it's a weird, just a hybrid really. It's basically just an eclectic band. And I do solo stuff also. I have like a one-man band where I play foot drums and accordion and scream a whole bunch. And yeah, that's it. I guess I've been playing music professionally for the last 10 years. And then before that, of course, I was recording and playing in little projects and doing little shows, but nothing too serious.
So your first band was the Unsettlers?
Well, I mean, as I said, I had other bands before. I lived in BC, and you know, we would throw together bands for the hell of it, do one show and then break up and make new bands. I was in a band called the Rutland All-Stars for a bit. I played with another band called Cafe Insomnia as a bass player, lots of little projects. I planted trees, and me and my tree planting buddies rented a cabin for the winter and just started recording songs. We must have recorded like 50 or 80 songs.
Over there?
Over in BC, we stayed in this cabin, and we just like recorded. We filled it full of instruments and just started recording. And so I've got a pile of recordings from that. And we did a couple shows like that. But again, it wasn't really going anywhere too much, and everybody just went their own ways. And it was after that project that I came to Montreal, and I thought I would get all those guys to come up here and we would continue the project. The trombone piano player guy came up here, but everybody else found themselves too busy with whatever they were doing at the time. And so then I just started Craigslist whoring around town, and eventually through a friend of mine who played in a band called People for Audio, I met the lead singer for the Unsettlers, and then that's like when I first started playing in a band that actually, you know, did shows, you know, of any consequence.
What brought you in Montreal? Like, I mean, a lot of people kind of moved from BC to Montreal, and was it like early 2000 or?
Well, it was 2006, 2007, late 2000s. Well, I was a tree planter for many years, and I was sort of getting into this pattern of like planting trees, going to a new city and checking it out for whatever reason. And I don't know, I was just got a little bit bored of out west. I wanted to do music really bad, and I felt like in BC it was, I don't know, it just wasn't going anywhere. Like I said, bands were coming together and just breaking up, and it wasn't, I don't know.
You just needed a new place.
I just needed a new place. So I came to Montreal, and I really liked Quebec and Montreal because it didn't feel the same. It felt like the rest of Canada. Anywhere you go, it's sort of the same thing, you know, people dress the same, they talk the same, they have the same values, the architecture is the same. And then when I came to Montreal, I was like, oh wow, there's this entire European vibe, everybody speaks a different language, they dress differently. There's more of a joie de vivre, you know, you can drink a beer on the streets without worrying about the police. I don't know, I just found it more relaxed.
Okay.
And so I stayed, and then, you know, like most people do, I came to Montreal and I fell in love, and I stayed, and I found music, and, you know, I ended up staying.
So you started playing bass when you were 15? That was your first instrument?
Yeah.
It's kind of a cliche thought, but when you started music, was it just, you know, I want to, I'll play badminton, or I'll play bass, or was it like, was there a fantasy behind it? Like, I wish I could become a rock star or something. When you're a teenager, sometimes you just focus on.
Well,
Was it there?
I don't know. I was 15 years old, so like most 15-year-olders, I was sort of, I was sort of dumb, and I didn't really know, and like, it's hard to say. Like, yeah, maybe there was these fantasies. I'd close my eyes and have these play acting fantasies of me on a big stage, but really I wasn't seeking to play in any bands. I would just smoke some doobies and play in the park by myself and find weird sounds. I think at that time music was just really, really touched me and made me feel awesome. So I wanted to learn how to do it, I guess. That was like the primal sort of thing. But I was a little bit awkward, and I didn't really have enough range to like play with anybody else. And yeah, I wanted to be in a band, but rock star wasn't really what I was going for at the beginning. Not necessarily. I mean, I was just a confused 15-year-old kid, you know.
Okay. So you were just playing, like composing music by yourself on bass?
Yeah.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Not the guitar?
No.
Never?
No, barely ever guitar. I think when I was like 21, I bought this weird 9-string guitar. Okay. And I started playing on that a bit in like weird tunings and stuff. I always, when I was young, I always sort of wanted to find the weirdest music. As a bass player, I was super into Primus and stuff like that. So, I'd be composing on bass, but I'd be doing arpeggio, finger picking and chords and stuff like that. The type of stuff that guitar players hate. So it was difficult for me to find a band for a long time because I just couldn't stop slapping or doing chords.
Too original or something.
What's that?
Too original?
Yeah, too original, not leaving enough space for the guitar players to do what they do.
And so your evolution from that point to today, like the way your capacities to play music, like are you satisfied with the process? Like you're always learning it to play better.
Yeah.
Was it fast? Like you learned fast, or I don't know?
Well, I mean, for me, I guess like playing well was never really like at the top of my thing. Like, I've been playing accordion for 10 years and I'm still like a miserable accordion player. But was never really the point for me. It was more just like finding an unusual way to do it, sort of, yeah, I mean, yeah, we get better all the time, for sure.
And when the accordion was 10 years ago, it started with...
yeah, about 10 years ago, like
the Unsettlers,
when I was, yeah, maybe a bit before the Unsettlers, like when I was planting trees, what I was doing is recording at home, because I was finding it difficult to hold down a band, so I buy like a cheap multi-tracker and I just record weird sort of little experimental projects at home. And so I was accumulating a lot of little instruments, I could sort of barely play clarinet and barely play mandolin and barely play banjo, and accordion was one of these instruments that I had in my big pile of junk. And so when I came to Montreal, I had a vague understanding of how to play a bunch of different instruments. And, I was trying to play as a bass player, but I was running into the same problem, they're just like, no, just hit the root notes, just like... and then with the Unsettlers, they needed an accordion, so I got an accordion, and it just sort of clicked.
Oh my God! So you just learned it like that?
Well, the Unsettlers was a 10-piece band, so it wasn't a lot of necessity for me to be complex. I could just hit root notes, but that was more interesting on an accordion than it would have been on a bass. And then from there, I sort of developed, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. But it's self-learning, like you just took the thing and you just tried it at home. That's what you do with all instruments.
Yeah.
You mainly play accordion now.
Yeah, mainly I play accordion.
Switch or?
When I'm doing tracks at home, I still do experimental sort of recordings. Mm-hmm. But on stage, yeah, I just basically play accordion. I mean, I've done some shows with acoustic guitar. Cold Lake Buzzards, I played acoustic guitar. and a little bit of bass, sometimes live, but yeah, mainly accordion.
Okay. This is like a hard question, but your evolution, like from all the projects you had, so in the past 10 years you had many projects, and you're always ready to build a new project, as I know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, almost every year I see like you're starting a new project, or anyways, I feel like it. I don't know if it's real, but like in your evolution of successful, well, of many projects, would you say to the state you are now, are you satisfied with what you need from music, or you can't get no satisfaction, like you're always running for your own tail? I don't know how to say, like you're, can you get, are you on a plateau or something, like you're like, at least you've achieved that and you feel comfortable, or you always running to?
Well, I think with any sort of art, there's no such thing as like steady contentment, you know. There's like little plateaus where for a while a certain project will fill that sort of artistic gap or that artistic need. And then, you know, once it starts to feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, then yeah, you know, of course I want to try something new all the time. And yeah, I think it's harder to find that contentment for longer. But, you know, with performance art, like music or dance or theater or whatever, there's a lot of these peaks and valleys. You know, you have like a really good show, and then you take that for a week, and then there's a bit of an ego crash after that until the next show. So, I mean,
does that affect you a lot?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, so, you know, I think like the entire contentment is sort of illusory, I suppose.
Do you think it's by nature, like we could say artists are like that, or it's just music that create that effects of waves? Or?
Well, I'd hate to make that type of generalization.
Mm-hmm.
I think like performance arts are a little bit difficult, more so than, let's say, doing a painting or writing a book. Because once you write a book or do a painting, then you can move on to a new project, and you know, you're sort of divorced and you send this project out into the world to do its work. But with music, you put a set together or you put a song together, and then you have to recreate it again and again and again on stage. So, you know, it's maybe it's a more rapid peaks and valleys. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to generalize because a lot of people are wired differently.
So just in, no, to describe this, but in few details out of making music, like if you're satisfied or not, and if it means anything to you, are you satisfied or not by the numbers of shows you make per year?
Yeah, well...
Does it matter? Or
I think sometimes it's too many shows, sometimes it's not enough shows. I mean, I think I can easily say that I'm never satisfied for a long period of time. We're doing enough shows for sure, but I don't feel like I'm touring enough. Maybe it feels like it's the same type of shows too much, and there's this entire business approach to touring and stuff that I don't have the patience or the skill set for. So, you know, we just sort of stay around here, and I like it, but I feel like it's been too many shows lately. That's just where I am now, you know. Like, you know, maybe that's going to change in the middle of winter or in summer, you know. It's yeah, it's not an emotionally stable type of environment, music, I don't find.
And this, if I can say, the size of the shows, are you satisfied with it? Like, for example, I mean, it's mainly related to the number of people.
Yeah,
like, do you care if there's like 10 people, like 3 people at your show, or you get more excited if there's 120? I don't know, or Oshiaga, you know.
It depends on the show, I suppose. Like, I feel like maybe with some projects there used to be more people showing up, and then, you know, once it starts to feel like less people, which I think is just because when you stay in the same region, a lot of people have seen your show and they're like, oh, I've seen that, I want to see something new. That can be a little bit discouraging, but at the same time, sometimes it's a lot of fun also. But yeah, no, I'd say it really depends, and that's part of the reason I like to start new projects. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'd say there's maybe there's less people, and that's a bit discouraging, but not really. You know,
What do you mean there's less people?
there's less people showing up at the shows than before, but that's not necessarily that much of a bummer, really. I mean,
For the
it's all-
same project, you mean? Like,
Yeah.
like for example, Bad Uncle, because that's maybe the more long-lasting project you had, is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Unsettlers was pretty lasted.
Yeah, they were long. I think Bad Uncles lasted longer.
You think there's less people coming?
Oh yeah, there's less people coming, but that's not necessarily such a big deal. I mean,
Is it because you play too much? Is it related with the first aspect? Like, or I don't know.
well, I don't know. It's been like 10 years or more, and I think tastes change, and maybe it's not because we played too much, but because we played too long in the same area, or maybe we've changed our sound a lot. It's hard for me to say. I don't know.
Was it cleaner before Bad Uncle a bit?
It was dirtier.
It was dirty before?
Yeah.
Okay. You changed musician, no?
Yeah.
The,
Well,
was
I didn't change musicians deliberately. You know, people move on. They got
I know
something to do.
for sure.
Oh yeah. We've had some different musicians. We used to have a trombone player.
Okay, I don't
Now
know.
we're down to a 4-piece. And
But
let's see.
The drummer was
The drummer's been there forever. He was
Oh,
on the
really?
Unsettlers also.
okay.
He used to play bass. Now he plays drums, and we have a contrabass.
The guitar player, I remember I saw you at Escogriffe or something. He had an arched up. It was kind of
Yeah.
huge jazz.
More
It's
like
not
a
the-
surf dude. He's still around, and I play in projects with him still.
But it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Okay,
No.
okay.
No.
So anyway, so it's kind of complex to say like how it evolves. But do you matter if it's lots of people, not a lot of people?
I mean, I like it if there's enough people because I also want to pay the musicians. And when it's like fast, loud music, it's sort of hard to play in an empty room. Yeah, of course, I think it matters if there's more people, but
Like for example, in Sherbrooke, last time I saw you, it's not your city, so I think it's hard. Like when we went to Brooklyn, I mean, we don't know. Well, we started to know people, but I mean, it's hard to have. I don't know if we. It was by pure chance. Sometimes we had maybe more than 20 people, but most of the time it was like from 5 to 15.
yeah. Well, that's sort of cool when you're meeting new people, you know? I sort of like that. We went to Brooklyn too, and we just had handfuls of people, but it was just fun being somewhere new, and meeting new people.
But does it, when you perform, you prepare for that whole show, and then there's like, let's say 6 people there.
Yeah.
Does it change you the way you play, or does it like gets you more cranky? You're like, oh, does it, or do you mind?
It's hard to generalize.
Okay.
I mean,
Depends on your mood.
in a lot of circumstances, whether there's a lot of people or there aren't a lot of people, I tend to just drink a lot. And then it really depends on where my mood is at or how much times I've drank in that week. Like, I think one of my problems is I've relied on alcohol quite a bit just to like, let's have fun. Even if there's just a couple people in the room, I'm having fun anyway. I'm with my buddies, I'm with my band, we're buddies. We're out there having a good time together. And that's, so it's really hard to generalize. Sometimes there's nobody in the room and I'm up on the tables. Other times the place is packed and I'm sort of, it's pretty hard to generalize.
Okay, so your reaction, it depends more on your mood or
My mood, yeah, for
your
sure.
physical
But
state.
I will say, I think in general, if if there's less people, you know, it can be a bit depressing, like for any performance art.
The bands you share the stage with, like, are you satisfied with that? Are you
Like the bands that I'm in, or the bands that we share the bill with, like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
other bands that we play with.
the second one? So the one you share the bill with,
Yeah.
like, you have problems with them, or it's always the community feeling? You've been better at meeting new bands, and I don't know. It's just you have problems or no?
I
No.
wouldn't say so.
No.
No, I think
Okay.
the other bands are always really cool, and the music industry can be a little bit snarky and a little bit competitive. But in the end, we're all just like good buddies who have a lot in common. You know, we all want to play music. Generally speaking, we play sort of the same type of music, have the same values. It's really easy to get along with most other musicians.
You mean competition industry, or the people that nag you with time schedule or something? You said the industry.
A little bit. You know, some people will be worried that your set is going too long, or, you know, there's little tiny things, right? But in general, I'd say it's all great.
Yeah. For some reason, we got better at it. At first, we had problems, lots of egos at the beginning. I don't know why. And
In the other bands?
yeah, and like you know, when they were coming to us, like you know, we need to play. It was unexperienced bands at
Yeah.
first, so they were more stressed, I think. And after that, we got we were playing mainly with friends, and I mean, it was just fun. I don't know, that
Yeah.
disappeared. So yeah.
We dealt a little bit with that, but I think over 10 years, we've sort of built a community here now in Montreal, right? And, you know, so it's not a big deal. And if one of the other bands is stressing out, we don't let it bother us, you know.
Okay, and does it matter to you, like the quality of the sound?
No, not
Like-
necessarily. I mean, if there's a lot of feedback, that bothers me.
Sound check, or the monitor, or some soundmen are just don't care, or they just don't understand the way you play.
Yeah, I'm not incredibly picky about that. Feedback bothers me. But I guess I'm just more concerned with what's going on in my head and how much energy I have. And
Okay. And the people, do you find them like the crowds? Do you find them receptive, or like if sometimes they change their mood, like the reaction's not the same, or it clicks most of the time? You seem to be able to turn people on, I think, when you play. Like, no?
yeah, most of the time I find it to be pretty good. I find the public to be pretty receptive. I think, yeah.
And when you compose your own, you're mainly in all project you compose. You write your
Not
music?
necessarily true. Like for my one band Monogamy, and for the last Bad Uncle album, it's very collaborative. People
Okay.
bring riffs, I bounce on it. I end up just playing accordion and writing the lyrics.
Based on jamming?
With Monogamy, it's very much based on jamming. With the last Bad Uncle album, it's based on people bringing riffs, and then we bounce it around and we polish it together.
Okay, build up, so it's mixed. But so for your part of that creativity, like, do you write songs? Do you think about the crowd, like how they're gonna react to it, like to satisfy them, or like you try to do it for you or for the sake of art? Like, for example, one crazy example, like if you would have, if we pose like commercial success, we could say, or just, you know, if you think of a song that's gonna make people bounce or something, so you focus on trying to write a song that's gonna have a certain reaction, or the opposite one would be pure kind of artistic thing where you wake up Sunday morning and you have this feeling that if you try to hit your head with your accordion, it might do a good sound, so you're gonna do a song based on that, whatever the reaction of the people is gonna be.
I guess I'm in the middle, but more towards personal expression there. Like, yeah, I think first thing is to sort of please the band and please myself artistically. And then if the audience likes it, all the better. you know, but that doesn't mean I'm just gonna like drop too many noise songs in a set. You know, I like to sort of think of a set instead of a song, or an album instead of a song, and have like, you know, a couple of songs that are accessible, a couple of songs that aren't accessible. But yeah, I'd say for the most part, I just try and please myself.
You see it more like a concept, like
I
when
guess.
you write like a whole. Okay, this I should write this album about this. Like
Sometimes, for sure.
like you see a story, like if you're writing a book or something, or is it all related topics? I didn't.
I mean, it's hard to say because over the last, you know, 10 years, I'll find myself in different headspaces for this year and a different space for this year. More recently, it's been more about working with compromise and working with the musicians that I'm working with and seeing where they're at. So like where I am at specifically isn't as important to the band as a whole. And I find like the democratic process of elimination in a band, it takes a long time, but you end up with something that's more unusual, you know?
So it's less centered about your.
Lately, yeah.
It used to be more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lately, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So. You know, so just regarding success in general, which again I said like I hate this word, but the ambition of musician or the objective you have, why you're doing music, where are you going with this? Some people maybe doesn't have any goal with it, but success could be, it's really relative. It could be temporary. It depends so much. It could be personal. But I had this idea because. This is really personal also, is you know, I really wanted to do just music. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna write, like, what's, not necessarily the steps to go there, but like, what do I need to make just this of my life, you know, not working anymore and stuff like that. So I thought, and I don't know if it's gonna lead to anything, but I made some type of list. I thought you needed mainly 5 things, but whatever, you know, it's not a. So first you need talent and charisma, which is kind of the seduction part of music, because it's, you know, you're showing your face, anyway, and you need determination and patience. So you have to, if you want, because you never know how it's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, or the opportunities that comes, you don't know. And also the historical context, because your type of music, for instance, could be really, could click more with so many people, like maybe, I don't know, like maybe in 10 years, or maybe in
10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea. So what's people need in music now? Kind of the marketing also, I think, but I don't know what's your view on that, but because to me DIY has its own marketing. Marketing is just a way to, you know, you have an object, you use Facebook to share the ideas, or, you know, let people hear about you, but it could be also media attention, which, you know, mass media is another thing. I don't know, you get that. And the final thing to me was luck, but some people don't believe in luck, like a random aspect in life where you don't control something. It's just but so I think I'll go straight to what's your perspective regarding success in music? Like, are you there just for your daily satisfaction? Like, I like to play music, it makes me feel good, that's it? Or are you doing it for the art of sake, like crafting something, getting better? Or for psychotherapy use? Or you wish to, you have a vision, like where you wish you could never work again. But I kind of asked you that before, but not on the but
well, I think, like for me, the measure measurement of success is constantly changing, you know? And I think as artists, we constantly set the bar higher for ourselves. So it's very hard to be content. Like, you know, at first, it was just to get on stage and to do something different and just like a very personal experience, cathartic, you know, like I just wanted to get up there and do it, you know, do it already. And then when people start to pay notice, then, you know, the level of success, you know, you up the bar, you're like, oh man, maybe we can tour with this, you know? And then when the tours start working, you're like, oh, that's it. Maybe we can be like, you know, we can tour the world. Maybe I'm never going to have to work again, right? And then that step, a lot of people maybe would define as success, as not having to work and just doing music. And maybe I was sort of there for a while. At this point, I wouldn't see that as success. I don't know if I would want to work as a musician all the time at this point, you know. I find it to be a lot of fun, but it's exhausting, you know. So at this point, I'd say like the success, yeah, maybe to dial it back a bit would be nice to just to tour a bit, I don't know, to play some music, to constantly be making new stuff. Like the idea of putting together like a successful commercial project and playing the same set every night for 6-month tours seems sort of like hell, I guess, to me. I'm more interested in the creative process. And so for me right now, success is just like how it's making me feel emotionally. And if it can fill in a certain emotional gap in my life and also help the community, you know, get people out of their houses, meet new people, get new ideas out there. That's sort of how I would define success now. I mean, and maybe if you ask me the same question in 2 years, it'll be a different answer. I think people are constantly redefining their definition of success based on where they are in their life, what they've already been through, and I think that applies more, even more than just music, you know, in our love lives, in our career, in our health, you know, in our trying to deal with addictions, I think we're constantly redefining our definition of success as human beings, and that's a good thing.
And do you, just on the commercial aspect, do you care about like sale numbers? Like you wanna, do you care about that? Like numbers of CDs you sell, you make a new thing, and you want to sell like 100,000.
Yeah, I care about that, but it's less about money than it is for my own ego. You know, it's less about, you know, getting like the cash from 100,000 sales than it is to get that idea that, oh man, I had this idea and it's reaching people, it's getting out there, you know. I'm touching more people with my idea. I mean, I guess at its roughest, most basic form, art is a form of communication. It's like a way of getting your ideas, and it's this type of community, this sharing of ideas that makes the entire human community work and makes it keep changing and growing and evolving. So I guess like if I'm doing a lot of sales or a lot of people are showing up at the shows, then it's more this feeling like, hey man, my life matters, I'm getting out there, I'm touching people, I'm reaching people. So, you know, it's more that than the sales. Like the money, the sales is just like a rough benchmark to let you know how you're doing, how many people you're reaching.
Would you say that just in your life philosophy in general, money is not that, I mean, anybody needs money, but I mean, to get like more, it's not important in your life, like.
Yeah, I would say that. Like
you're not like thinking like, I wish I would make more money to get this car. I don't know if you have a car or something.
No,
it's not a good idea to have a car in Montreal.
No, I mean, I don't think like that at all. But I think as I'm getting a bit older, or maybe I'm less happy to just sleep on the floor in a punk house. You know, so then, you know, started to hit my late 20s. I'm like, no, you know, I need enough money to rent my own apartment. I don't want to share with a whole bunch of roommates, you know. But yeah, even having a car or, you know, buying clothes that costs more than $5 for a pair of pants or anything like that, it really doesn't matter to me.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I thought you were saying that it kind of gets a bit more important. But it's
No,
a bit
no,
more
but
the
like,
comfort side.
yeah, just the comfort side, maybe eating a bit better,
Mhm.
um, you know, buying a six pack of beer instead of a big bottle of Molson Dry.
Mhm.
You know, just like little tiny things
Mhm.
that just happen as you become an adult and you start to want to care for your health a bit more.
Okay. Regarding geographics, do you think it changed anything if you're where you're doing your project? Like if you're in the States, in Canada, in France, or in Istanbul, or well, I mean Istanbul is kind of exotic. I don't know if we can compare, but anywhere in the world, like you think it changed anything? Like London, classic, like London, New York versus Montreal. Montreal had a big buzz, but I don't know if it changed anything. It's maybe a media thing.
I think it really depends on what you want to do with your music. If you want to play close at home and be part of your local community, then it very much matters where you play. But if you want to put together a vehicle that tours, then it doesn't necessarily matter as much. You know, I know lots of bands that, you know, they exist here, they practice here, but, you know, they do most of their work on large extended tours through festivals during the summer. So I think with the internet and all of that type of thing, you can really reach people without leaving your home. I know some people that live in small towns, you know, towns of like 5,000 people, and they, you know, put together really good tours, and maybe it's easier for them even because, you know, they can get together and practice more because there's less going on, you know. But if you want that type of music where you're playing once a week and reaching out to the people in your local community and making friends and keeping your, you know, then it matters where you live, I suppose.
But we just, I don't know, because I didn't tour that much, you know. We just went a bit in the States and stuff. But don't you need to obtain a certain amount of attention or success from your project to be able to tour? Or touring is just easy, just take the road?
It just requires a lot of work. You need to put together a press package that is up to the industry standards. You need to make a nice video. You need to have a sound that isn't too threatening for festivals and stuff like that. And I think you could tour very well without a big local buzz, just as long as, you know, your package is up to the industry standards, it's what festivals are looking for, then you can tour as much as you want.
And I heard a lot about the festivals in Europe. Like it seems to be kind of the thing to do. I don't know if you did you do it? Did you play a bit?
I haven't played. I played like one festival in Europe, which was a street performance festival, but not too much. Like, because on top of having, you know, a professional package, which is, you know, we've always just been very vulgar ourselves, you also need to spend countless hours sending emails, getting refused, getting accepted. And then once you do that, then you have to send countless more emails, securing lodging, places to sleep, cars, tactics. It's a lot of work. You know, you don't just send out your press package and a tour comes together. There is, on top of that, just hours and hours and hours of sitting in front of a computer. And it takes hours and hours and hours of sitting in front of a computer to get, you know, your press package put together properly, and years of trial and error before you get, you know, you find your own contacts and you get everything lined up for yourself.
And you do that yourself?
I don't do it at all. That's why I don't tour very much.
But the press package, like, oh, you just know that you have to do that, but you never did it yourself, or?
I can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Even did you ever apply for grants?
Yeah.
Okay. Even that is kind of, I heard it was kind of.
That's a lot less. Applying for grants is a big, and I have a lot of friends that applying for grants is sort of like their part-time job. You know, they wake up in the morning, they work on their grants, and they make a living, a fairly decent living, or at least a portion of their living, just doing that, because there's always grants popping up, and they just make sure to keep applying for every grant from every different thing, and that's another way to sort of do it, you know. So then when you're doing that and applying for tours, then you're starting to look at what is a full-time job. It's like waking up early in the morning and spending 6 hours on the computer. And you know, that's it's difficult because I don't have the head for that. You know,
Lots of
it's
time
not what I
not
want to be
doing
doing.
music.
You know, I don't want to be in front of my computer all day. I'd rather go out and get a job. You know?
Okay. Do you said you had grants?
Yeah, I received
Sometimes
a
you
grant
apply-
from the Canadian Council of Arts to do a big circus event, circus music sort of fusion. And it was a research and development grant to sort of get into the circus industry and to finish writing this project.
Was it related to Carmagnole or something?
Oh yeah, I worked with all of those. I work with those people often. This Carmagnole freaks.
Okay.
Yeah, they were the circus aspect of the performance came from a lot of Carmagnoles.
Okay. You know, I like. Do you have any in the States? There's any like you know any musician in the States?
Yeah.
Like, is there any grants? Like, how do they do it? Like, where do they get the
I don't
money?
think there's. I don't know if there's a lot of government grants, but I think there's a lot of private scholarships or whatever you want to call them, right?
Okay.
But I don't know enough about it to comment.
Okay. So just specifically regarding Quebec, like, I don't know. I heard just last thing about grants. I heard it's maybe easier in Quebec if you're French to have grants.
Well, there's. I mean, it's
If you
not.
sing in French, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. It's not. I mean, maybe it's not necessarily easier, but there's a whole nother umbrella of grants that you can apply for, in addition to the ones that are already available to regular Canadians. So, you know, it's still hard. It still requires the same amount of paperwork, and you still have to present a good case for yourself. But at this stage, you can apply for French language grants, English language grants from Canada, and you know, you just have like an extra, you know, you have an extra couple things that you can apply for.
So how do you feel to be do you consider yourself to be Anglophone, or I think you said your mother was French?
Yeah, I'm an Anglophone.
Okay, it was your first language.
Yeah.
So being as your first language and being in Quebec and doing music, like I know Montreal is kind of, you know, blend. It's French, it's whatever. In fact, it's Hindu, it's Chinese, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, do you feel? How do you feel about? Is it harder? Is it to be?
I've heard, and I have a lot of English friends who sometimes say that it's a bit harder in Quebec and it's very hard to tour because, you know, they don't speak French. And I've found that from my personal experience to sort of be bullshit. I find the French side of the community here to be much more accepting of new music. They like to dance more. I don't know, I find it to be more of a party. I find them to be a much better audience, the Quebecers. So in Montreal, it's less of a problem if you speak in English, of course, because it's a little bit more bilingual. But we've had the opportunity to tour a lot in smaller cities in Quebec, smaller towns, little villages even. And there you will run into a little bit more, you know, they want you to speak in French. And
Between the songs?
yeah, between the sets, right? Between the songs. And, you know, it's not hard to say bonjour. You know, I mangle. I get up there with my bad French and I don't know, I find them to be very accepting. But also I find maybe the type of music we're playing also affects that because I play accordion and, you know, that's one thing. I see a lot of like Anglophones that are just doing like indie rock or whatever and they don't understand why they're not getting callbacks for the smaller cities in Quebec. But, you know, they just like a more rootsy, folky type of music in general, right? So, honestly, I find a lot of people say that, oh, it's so hard in Quebec if you don't speak French. And honestly, I found that the most love I've gotten is from the French community. If it wasn't for the French community, I wouldn't be playing music here, you know?
You think more French people go to see your shows, or I mean, let's say just in Montreal because there's more Anglophone.
Well, there's still more Francophones in Montreal than there are Anglophones.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, but well, I would say that it's unquestionably more French people. I'd say it's like 80% French people at my shows.
Is it because the area where you play, like you could play mainly maybe on the plateau where I think maybe you live, or like for example, for instance, there's more French people going to l'Escogriffe, I think,
Yeah.
because it's on the plateau or something. But if you would go maybe play on Crescent Street, like maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if
Sometimes
we
you go there.
play at, let's say, Grumpy's Bar, then yeah, there's more Anglophones there. But you know, you have, that's just because it's an Anglo bar, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But you know, generally speaking, I think there's just more Quebecers. But you know, that being said, there used to be a lot of bars up on the Mile End, like the Green Room or Bar Saint Laurent 2, or the Main Hall, where I feel like there would be a little bit more Anglophones, but these venues have closed down, and I don't know. I feel like it's, you know, we're in Quebec, it's predominantly French.
Okay.
It's just that.
Just thinking. So, regarding medias in general, like could be new media, social medias, or just traditional one. Have you seen a different reaction from the different bands you had from the media? And is it because of the style of music, or did you try a different approach with the media? So maybe you didn't do it yourself, but you were aware. Like the media attention, like the how can you explain that it's different from one project to another? Or?
Well, I think Unsettlers got a lot of media attention, but you know, it was like a softer and more professionally put together, more well recorded, more space. You know, it was and so there was a fair amount of media attention there, but it was more professionally put together. It was more thought of, more considerated, blocked out. And it was a larger team, so some people could focus on this and some people focus on that. And then with Bad Uncle, you know, it's always been a very dirty band. It's always been an afterthought. And we got some media attention, but you know, we never go out and ask for it deliberately. It just, sometimes interviews happen. And we would get some interviews with maybe Bang Bang or Camus or underground sort of papers and stuff like that. Well, not underground papers, but...
Because to be honest, just a quick thing here. Like the first time, like I don't know, I've seen so many shows because I was trying to meet lots of people, and also I love music and stuff. The first time I saw you at l'Escogriffe, I don't remember what year, it was a while ago. You know, maybe, I don't know how many times I had that feeling, but I've seen, I could say, underground bands, like maybe a lot, and maybe like 5 times I had the feeling, like when I saw when we played with them, I was like, I mean, something's happening here. Like, even if it was like their 3rd show, I was like, where does these people come from? Like, I don't know. And like, you see the way they do the music, and something is working well. So I thought maybe they could go well. I had this same type of feeling when I saw Bad Uncle at l'Escogriffe, where I thought, like, I think this could get really huge. I still don't understand, like, well, first it's a personal feeling, but like, I thought sometimes it's because of the media attention. It's also maybe the type of music.
Well, I think, you know, what's popular on a community level and what sort of works in terms of mainstream sort of media or like Facebook sort of media is sort of different, because I think, you know, it's like, great raucous show, that's sort of one thing. But I guess in the case of Half Moon Run, it's a little bit more contemporary to the times. Bad Uncle maybe is a little bit rootsy, folky, dirty, and it's not exactly the type of thing that seems to be getting a lot of attention from like Exclaim magazine or whatever. It seems to be more like the indie rock, sort of Arcade Fire sort of genre. seems to be sort of what the journalists are more interested in covering right now. So, I mean, that's maybe an aspect of it. The other aspect is just a lack of work on our behalf. You know, there's an entire amount of work sending press packages out, playing showcases, you know, like playing North by Northeast and securing a good spot. There's a lot of politics and a lot of hard work that goes into it that, you know, I didn't care to work on that.
Would you like to be on a record label? Are you on a record label?
We're starting to work with my other band, Monogamy, with a French record label called Just Un Travers. And we'll see how that goes. I would like it because it's not work that I care to do.
You do your own booking?
Yeah, but I mean, usually it's just on a local level, and usually it's just, you know, they approach us and they're like, hey, do you want to play this special event or whatever? And I say yeah, or I say no. And sometimes I book little tours, but yeah, for the most part, it's just what comes to me. You know, I'm more interested in just writing music.
For instance, like, I don't know if we can make an hierarchy in labels, but like, Afternoon got signed to Indica, and I guess they are working hard in the back to promote the band, press work, like you said, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess that helps also.
Oh yeah, having a large label, because the labels already have a rapport with journalists and with festivals, so it's a lot easier for them to make that process go quicker.
Would you like to be on the, would you like to be on a major label?
Would love it, yeah.
Yeah. You don't think that you get screwed up out of that automatically?
Okay.
Even if they, that's a classic example that I heard from people I knew, that even if they tell you how to dress, for instance, and they give you an A&R, art and relation, I guess, dude that follows you around and kind of...
Well, that wouldn't bother me too much as long as it's still within general keeping of the band's general demeanor, right? Like, I wouldn't care that much if they tell me to wear a leather jacket instead of a jean jacket, you know, that's a minor detail to me, you know, but if they start telling me to cut my hair or to shave or to wear a certain, I don't know, that's not a black or white type of question, you know. Of course I'd be open to a little bit of it, you know, they have a better idea of what works, right? But there is a certain level that shouldn't be crossed, I think.
Do you think the media in general, they focus always on the same 1% of bands, like, and copycats of bands, for example, just the Rolling Stones, and then the bands that sounds like the Rolling Stones, like, is it like, and if so, like, is it because of the money? Like, is it like, why, it's like, is it a cartel against creativity? Like,
well, I think it's a little bit more insidious than that. I think I really started to sort of feel it with the advent of internet. And I feel like large major record labels lost a large source of revenue when all of a sudden people were able to just burn and copy discs or just download it from the internet for free. So all of a sudden they lost a large amount of income, which allowed them to field unusual bands. Like you'd have bands like Primus in the mainstream, or White Zombie, or Nine Inch Nails, you know, or like all these really bizarre bands in the 90s, or Talking Heads, you know, you're like, where's the sex appeal in these bands? How are they on the mainstream? But then I think with the internet, what happened is they had to start to aim for broader and broader audiences, you know, and focus on larger demographics, or try to come up with generalizations that would reach, you know, an entire age segment, right? So that's why you see, you know, a lot of just boy bands or hip hop or indie music, is because they're, you know, very accessible forms of music. And I think it's just a market response. I don't think it's a cartel against creativity, because these are the same guys that were putting out bizarre bands, you know, that it was the major record labels that put bands like Yes or King Crimson, you know.
The industry kind of changed.
The industry changed a bit, like, and so yeah, as I was saying, I feel like, you know, the larger record labels and stuff are sort of focusing more on larger demographics. And Yeah.
Because CDs doesn't sell anymore? Is that the
CDs
basic-
they sell less. People are leaving their houses a bit less for shows, smaller shows. It's more bigger festivals with larger name recognition. And yeah, so I think that's because there's less revenue for large record labels, they're sort of focusing more on broader demographics. And then that creates an entire generation of kids who, they think that that's the norm, and they think indie rock is unusual music, and it's rebellious, but it's, it's just like the radio rock of yesteryear.
So do you think it forced a return in strength of some type of DIY movement for bands that are more original or more, I don't know if I could say more creative, it's kind of awkward to say because pop music could be, and pop music is so wide anyway, so...
Well, it's a broad term. No, I don't think it's really creating a big resurgence of DIY. Not right now, maybe soon, but I think now, you got a lot more of this Netflix and chill type of community, and with the economy, people don't have quite as much money to go to bars and to pay cover charge, and the internet, you just got access to such fabulous entertainment for free. It's a bit more of a stay-at-home culture that seems to be emerging,
So you think it's harder for some today than it was in the 90s when you get a original band that's not in the roots of mainstream? Is it harder now?
I think it is. I think record labels were more willing to take chances on unusual bands, and that created more of an interest in unusual bands in the public, and it was just more of a of an era of experimentation, I suppose.
Do you think there's more bands today?
I think there's more bands today. It's hard for me to say though. I mean, because I moved from out west to Montreal, and there's definitely more bands in Montreal. So my personal experience is that, yeah, there's way more bands now, but,
Okay, yeah, it's hard to say. Just regarding the different stage of success, for instance, like the huge icons, Elvis, like Neil Young, Muddy Waters, Arcade Fire, I could say, like Madonna, Michael Jackson, whatever. These bands that got so huge, out of the name got bigger than the music somehow. How did they got there? You think? How does that?
Well, I mean, that's more of a music history question. I think in Elvis's case, this was coming after the war era, right? Where a lot of the media, bands, movies, and everything was targeted towards the war effort. And so after that was done, then there was sort of like a need for some new rebellious sort of music. And the question of race was still very present back then. And Elvis was sort of doing that bridge between black music and white music. And from my readings, from what I understand, he also had a very aggressive manager who also helped push him quite a bit. So I think it's a lot like being at the right place at the right time and doing a fusion of music that people want to hear, that is fresh. And also, coming out, like the era that precedes any music is very instructive too, because, I think people got a little bit bored of war anthems and big band music at that point, and they wanted to hear something just simple and poppy that grabbed you. So Elvis really sort of did that. I mean, there was already a lot of black musicians doing exactly what he did before him, but, white America wasn't ready to, to make a black man their hero at that point in time. So that was just a good place and time for him. Madonna, I can't speak for her, that feels a little bit more like one of the first divas, but I guess to a certain degree also she was speaking towards the emancipation of women, you know, she was being openly materialistic and like, you know, whatever, you know, girls just want to have fun, you know, screw this Barbie doll thing. And also, I guess that coincides with new technology, with this electronic music that was coming out. It needed a new start. It's hard to say.
It's complex. Like it's not just good music, hard work, and then boom.
I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion about why these musicians exploded as much as they did. This is also back in a day when, you know, there wasn't a million, billion bands, you know, there was, you know, it's like every town would have their band and then a whole bunch of cover bands. So I think there was less options. Communication technology moved a lot slower, so it was a lot easier for one band or one sound to sort of corner the market. I don't know.
And so what's the difference? You know, some bands are successful, they get to a certain stage, but like, for example, my mother doesn't know about them. Like, I don't know, like Grizzly Bear, Elliott Smith, Godspeed. Like, they live their life out of music, but it's still kind of underground.
Well, I think this is just a generational question, and it's a question of different age demographics. And I think it's also a question of what happens to people when they get older. You know, you don't want to jump on every new trend, you know, and, you know, as like a 50-year-old person, you don't want to be listening to what the teenagers are listening to. You know, that's what your kids listen to. You know, when you become busy with your life, with raising your own kids, and you don't have the time to check every new band that's popping up, right? So you end up just liking the stuff that you grew up with. So, I mean, Grizzly Bear is huge, and they're reaching a large market of people in their chosen age demographic. But of course, you know, they're not reaching the old punk rockers from the 80s or the old hippies from the 60s, you know. Yeah, that's just more of a question of age demographics, I think.
And if you compare the different levels that a band could reach, like huge, these medium kind of generational demographic focused bands, like I just said, and small underground success, like just local scene, like where do you want to go personally? Like, what's your
I don't know. Me, I guess.
Because you kind of said that, you know, touring all the time could be kind of tiring and stuff, and so I guess the bigger you get, the more you get into that cycle.
Well, I mean, it all depends. Right now, at this point, would like to make something different. I mean, I'm always trying to just make something different for the sake of it. I don't know. Where would I want to get? I guess I'm sort of happy where I am. I'd like to tour a bit more and just use music as a vehicle to see the world, but not like 6-month tours. I don't want to make music my job. But I would like to travel with it and meet new people and reach new people.
It's not a matter of, you don't see it necessarily as a career.
Well, I mean, I mean, there's a career that gives you money, and then there's a career that gives you spiritual satisfaction. So yeah, I sort of still see it as a career, a métier, you know. But, you know, we were talking before about waking up and doing, let's say I had a record label to take care of all the grants and everything, and, you know, I just went and played like month-long tours twice a year, and some showcases, maybe doing one show a month, and then having the time to create other weird little projects and record albums. That would make me happy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm fairly close to doing that. But, you know, huge success like Elvis or whatever, I think that at the age I'm at now, that would just be destructive. Maybe I would have to learn how to enjoy doing all that without drinking so much.
Too many shows, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if I could find a way to enjoy it as much without drinking, then a large tour would be possible, you know, but...
What's the thing with music and than drugs and alcohol? What do you think? Like, is it? Because I mean, I don't remember many shows that I didn't drink one beer. Like I usually even had this, you know, I need one or two pints before my show and one just before my show, and then one rum or two rums during the show, and then you know had this whole kind of, I don't know if it's superstitious, is it just addiction or something like?
Well, I think when you're putting on a show, a lot of the times it's at a venue where they serve alcohol, and I think generally speaking, whatever energy you're putting out on stage is sort of projected onto the audience, and they sort of feel that. And if you're all bummed out or boring, then the audience is bummed out and bored. But if you're lively and drunk and you're saying all sorts of funny shit, it makes them want to drink, and it makes them want to say funny shit to each other, you know? You sort of, as the performance is sort of like the centerpiece of what is a socializing evening for everybody, right? And so I feel like the sort of pressure is to be larger than life, to be vocal, to dance around, and to play the clown, right? Which can be hard for some people without drinking. Some people have it naturally. You know, other people need a little bit of help to get to that stage.
Don't you think that to a certain extent, you kind of, it could be maybe like that at the beginning, and then if it gets, you know, music and then alcohol and drugs or whatever you need to get to that monster performance artist where you have to be larger than life to inspire people? Like, there's a certain point where it takes too much place and the quality of your performance kind of, you could have been better if you were drinking less, you know,
Oh yeah, very much. I find like if I'm playing a lot of shows and I'm drinking a lot, then the alcohol will just sort of make me sad and shitty. And like this is part of the reason why I don't think long tours are very good for me, because you end up having to drink twice as much the second day, you know, in order to get to that stage. And then, you know, you wake up twice as hungover, and then, you know, but this is just a generalization. This isn't a generalization for all musicians. It's just, you know, sort of me and where I'm at. And it would be good to sort of address those problems before going on any big tour.
Because it would, if it's every day or like you play 4 times a week, it could be, it's too exhausting.
Oh, it is. And then the alcohol doesn't even work. And then, yeah, your performance deteriorates, your personality deteriorates.
Then you need something more.
Yeah.
So,
and then, you know, the next thing you know, yeah, you're burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Anyway, maybe there was one last thing we should be talking about, but we kind of did the full circle. But there was this idea of kind of came from Kurt Cobain, but like where whatever the music you do, if you put like passion to it and like play shows, of course, or if you have passion, and somebody someday will notice, and it will get somewhere. Like yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a question, but
well, I mean, it's gonna get somewhere. Just like where exactly? Like, you know, getting like to big superstardom is not a guarantee, no matter how much passion or work, you know, you put in. I think, but you put a lot of passion and work in, and eventually, yeah, you're going to be playing shows with people that appreciate your music. You'll find your demographic of people that like what you do. But, you know, just passion and hard work isn't necessarily, like, imagine, like, it depends what style of music you're playing, right? You can be like a super passionate barbershop quartet, right? But if you don't have another 3 guys to make the barbershop quartet come together, or, you know, maybe barbershop quartet isn't as popular as it was in the 30s. So it depends on what style of music you're playing, whether it's viable in the generation, or how much work you do. Maybe there's a little bit of luck, networking. But I think if you're passionate about your music, then already you're successful because it's filling a hole in your soul and it's allowing you to be happy. I think even if you're very successful and you're not passionate about it anymore, then you could be making money off of it, but you're not really succeeding because you're not happy, you know? And then when you're an old man and you look at your life and you're like, oh man, I played all these shows, but I wasn't happy for the last 20 years. And really, in the grand scheme of things, it's all meaningless. It's, you know, it's a very personalized question. It's about what makes you happy. And
Yeah, I guess he was maybe more referring to the commercial success, which is not the only thing about music, you know. So much things. Maybe one last thought I wanted to share, but I don't know. It might not lead anywhere. But the first time I heard you, I thought it could be interesting if you would make some type. I don't know if it's maybe out of date. I don't know, but some type of dark jazz, kind of clean, but kind of Tom Waits-ish with your big voice. You know?
yeah,
I don't know. And I thought you just put like an upright bass and crazy jazz blues musician with you, keep it maybe cleaner. I thought that would be interesting to hear.
yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe that's in the future. You know?
But I really like your the raw energy when your band goes on. I mean, I'm talking mainly about Bad Uncle. That's the one I saw more. But even whenever you play, even if you play alone, it just, you know, something lifts. Like there's always the magic there.
Sure. Well, I mean, I got to find and maintain that energy if it's just that. But yeah, it would be nice to write something a little bit less creepy where I don't have to be bouncing off the walls all the time. You know, that's sort of like old me, you know? That's like 28-year-old Santosh, like, who has something to prove, right? Now, yeah, maybe it would be nicer to do something more relaxed. I still like to rock out, though, you know, but I don't know, like, we're not in complete control of our creative process, you know, like, you want to write something in your head, and then, you know,
What comes out?
what comes out isn't always the same as what you hear in your head. Sometimes you can't get the band to play it the way you want, or, you know, it just translates poorly onto album. It's hard to say. It's all a very chaotic process, you know.
So in fact, you don't know where it's gonna go. You can't say, like it's.
I don't know.
You're open to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that's pretty much it. You know, it could end. We could do that all day.
Yeah.